इधर से थोड़ा कर लेना और फ्रंटल में एक दो होता है या तो लास्ट मूव करके बैक करके जैसे ये ब्लॉक दिखा देना, ये ब्लॉक साइड ब्लॉक अवॉइड कर देना, कंप्लीट ब्लैक अपने पीछे बोल देना साइड ये वाला ब्लॉक ले लो, ये वाला
ओके,
वो थोड़ा आ जाएगा ना, हम लोग भी आ जाते हैं।
कोई बात नहीं, तो मैं राइट साइड से।
हाँ बस बस इनका पूरा कंप्लीट बैक ये सब ले लेना, इधर का पूरा।
May I request the panelists to take the stage? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lieutenant Commander Ishant Panwar from the Naval Innovation and Indigenization Organization, or DNIIO. I, on behalf of the Indian Navy, welcome you all to the Naval Seminar on the theme Arming for Tomorrow, Envisioning the Manned-Unmanned Force Mix for Armed Forces. The Indian Navy is pleased to organize this seminar in conjunction with the Society of Indian Defence Manufacturers. It is indeed quite heartening to see the gathering present here in the auditorium. I also welcome the audience who is joining us through hybrid mode. Without any further delay, may I now request Vice Admiral S.N. Gorbade, PVSM, AVSM, NM, Vice Chief of the Naval Staff, to deliver the keynote address.
Lieutenant General Thandare, Principal Advisor, Modi, Rear Admiral Mary McCarty, Assistant Chief of Naval Staff, Staff Requirements, Dr. Peter Layton, author of Algorithmic Warfare, Forces, Mr. Niladri Datta, Guardian Technologies, Group Captain H.P. Thakur, Deputy Chief Test Pilot. Very good afternoon to you, to all the ladies and gentlemen present here. And welcome to the Naval Seminar, which is being held today in conjunction with the SIDM. I would also especially welcome all the people around the globe who are joining us live at this time. Recent conflicts have shown that autonomous, semi-autonomous and swarm unmanned systems will be an integral part of the warfare in the years to come. This is a reality and will only grow exponentially in the future. Manned-unmanned teaming or MUMTI is no longer an esoteric concept somewhere in the distant future. So to begin with, I would like to state very emphatically that the future is already here. At the outset, let me also emphasize that I am using the terms manned and unmanned in their broadest sense, keeping in the view of the prevalent use of these terms, and this usage is intended to be gender neutral and includes women as much as men. Women are already very much part of the Indian Navy, and all over the world they are very much part of all these advancements. In case of the Navy, we are inducting them in all branches, and they will start slowly as Navies also. Perhaps we could have crewed, that is CREWED, crewed and uncrewed teaming, that may be more appropriate. The Indian Navy realizes that the nature of warfare is changing. We have already started inducting unmanned systems of various kinds. A dedicated unmanned squadron has already been established, and in addition to the multiple existing squadrons which were operating various types of drones. The Navy has also promulgated an unmanned roadmap, which was the document Indian Naval Vision document for unmanned systems, and an unclassified version of the unmanned roadmap, which was industry specific, was released by the Honorable Prime Minister during the NIIO seminar in July this year. This document has been shared with our industry partners. Further, today the Ops demo will be there in the evening at the Sabarmati riverfront. Similarly, we have a drone show tomorrow. All these are part of the DevExpo. We'll also have some of the unmanned systems which are not only on display, but the unmanned systems are taking part as an integral part of this demo. A number of challenges which were launched under the sprint or supporting and pole vaulting in R&D through IDEX, NIIO and TDAC. This was an initiative of Indian Navy related to autonomous systems. It may therefore be seen that the Navy is very much cognizant of the changes that are taking place and is also undertaking proactive steps to ensure that we keep pace with the ongoing changes. Autonomous systems will certainly have challenges in implementation. It is also not about technology alone, but equally about people and policies. As we induct unmanned systems and going for the manned-unmanned teaming, the character of warfare is bound to change. The future armed forces will need to decide operational concepts, tactics, and also decide the right mix of manned and unmanned systems. This would be to optimize situational awareness and decision making. The final aim would be the success of the mission with enhanced lethality and improved survivability. Even in peacetime, autonomous systems have a huge role to play for all kinds of tasks which vary from ships maintenance to search and rescue, amongst numerous others. Change to a mix of manned and unmanned systems will need to be thought through carefully. In addition to the ethical considerations of letting machines take all the decisions, there would be issues of explainability, which probably will be the biggest hurdle to the acceptance of artificial intelligence in warfare. These issues need to be discussed and deliberated as well. And rightly said, nothing can be 100% autonomous. There has to be somebody behind it, some human being. The maritime domain has some unique challenges. Worldwide, the induction of unmanned systems is being led by airborne systems. This is, however, also set to change as unmanned systems are making their presence felt in all three dimensions that the Navy operates, that is in the air, the surface and below the surface. We have very eminent speakers with us today. I look forward to engaging discussions during the seminar. Thank you. Jai Hind. Shramno Varuna.
May I now call upon Lieutenant General E.G. Khandare, PVSM, AVSM, SM retired, Principal Advisor to the Ministry of Defence, to deliver the special address.
Jai Hind and good afternoon to everyone who's here and who's virtually connected also. Thank you so much, Admiral Bhamade, Vice Chief of Naval Staff, for starting the proceedings on a very good note, especially in terms of cross-domain utilization of manned, unmanned or crewed, uncrewed, whichever terminology you may want to use. More important is, what is the nature of warfare as we visualize it for tomorrow? And in most of the cases, I would like to say, what we are thinking of tomorrow is already here, right now. If we are late, doesn't mean that the domain is futuristic. It is concurrent right now. And why do we say that? There are many tasks which are either dangerous, routine, mundane, boring, or need to be done in a manner to optimize manpower. All these have to be taken in this present domain for which the experts are sitting on the dais. There are other issues which we have to take beyond purely military dimensions, although within the military, land, air, maritime and space. These are the things where we have to definitely go in for unmanned. And what the Vice Chief of Naval Staff says very correctly, the manual override has to be there so that it cannot be just taken away with a cyber attack. So that is where the cyber is also woven into that. Now if we are to look at the business opportunities, and that is what many of you are looking at, unless there are scales of consumption, scales of usage, no businessman would like to enter that. Which brings me to the thought process that this is not purely a military matter. It is a non-military matter as much. There are many ministries which are looking at these solutions of robotics and artificial intelligence. Take for example something where exploration has to be done beyond the human endurance capabilities. So that is where these capabilities will have to be brought in, commercialized and ensured that business ventures also land up in certain degree of profitability, because of which more merit comes into this domain. Going at national levels, there are countries which are facing a population deficit, and those countries are the ones which went in more for mechanization initially, which a lot of people did not understand. There were compulsions of population deficit, there were compulsions of armed forces unpopularity as a stream to serve in. And there are many countries, I do not want to name them, and they went in for mechanization, and immediately after that they went in for use of robotics and artificial intelligence, and that is the way to go. In the current day context, having body bags is something which is unacceptable to any country. And governments will fall if such things happen. So that is where the governance system is also going to push the armed forces to go in for solutions where you minimize casualties, minimize dangers to human life, minimize human losses and property losses. So that is the reason why whatever the military mind is thinking has also to reach beyond the context of pure military matters and go in for a higher level of thinking where decision making is done by people in power and give them solutions which are acceptable to the country at large. So these are the things where in all three domains and the fourth domain space where we will have to look at. Today morning while I was going through the exhibition stalls and I was interacting with the scientists, I had to actually keep brainstorming with them to make them understand that technology purely is not the answer, the application for the end user is more important. So if we are talking of manned-unmanned combination, it is the military mind which is saying that unmanned should lead and manned should follow so that everything is known well in advance before the crisis gets created. But for a scientist to imagine that is a little bit difficult. So that is where cross-pollination of users and scientists. When I say scientist, I am going beyond the pure scientist thought process of pure research. I am saying applied research is also one which has to be given more priority. And we have to form joint teams. So while a lot of people are talking of integration and jointness, this is the first place where we have to go joint with the designer, developer, production agency and the user. At the right place, unless the user interface is done, right from the conception till the production and then subsequent product improvement as well as product upgrades. So those are the issues which I think we all will have to put our heart and soul into it. And unless we put in a team effort, the concept and utilization of this brilliant thought process will remain only theoretical. And I think it is high time that pure research gets translated into applied research, and it is going to help everyone on the face of this earth. I do not want to stand between you and the learned people on the stage. Let me tell you that all the people who are on the stage have done a fantastic job so far. I would like to compliment Indian Navy for being first of the starter block. They have been leading in terms of indigenization, automation, mechanization. They have been at the forefront, applying their minds as to what makes their job more interesting, more easy, economical and futuristic. So my compliments to the Chief of the Naval Staff, the Vice Chief of the Naval Staff, Vineet McCarthy here, Arun Golaya. These people have been doing a wonderful job. There are many more who are behind the scene, but let me be quite frank and candid and say publicly, I want to applaud you. Please give them a big hand.
We now move on to the interactive session. I now hand over the dais to Commodore Arun Golaya, VSM Officer in Charge, Technology Development Acceleration, SED, to take the proceedings further. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me at the back? Can you hear me? Yes, thank you very much. I think we are running slightly behind time, so I will not give the introduction to all the speakers. As you said, most of them are actually quite well known. We'll start off with a talk by Dr. Peter Layton, who is joining us online, and anybody who's been talking about algorithmic warfare actually certainly needs no introduction. Dr. Peter Layton does not need an introduction. He is the author of the book Algorithmic Warfare. And I am given to understand he's now working on his second book, which he's co-authoring, which is titled, if I'm not wrong, Warfare in the Robotic Era. Is that correct? Dr. Peter Layton, are you, can you hear us?
I can certainly hear you, and that is right. Although it is taking somewhat longer than I wished to.
It's a pleasure interacting with you again, sir, and we keep seem to be meeting whenever there's a seminar on this topic. You are the authority, the floor is yours, sir. I would request you to just give a brief introduction to algorithmic warfare per se, and thereafter we'll have further discussions and other speakers to follow.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Algorithms are the sequence of instruction tools that machines use to solve problems. Algorithms transform inputs and outputs into such a fundamental to modern digital technology, and in particular today's artificial intelligence. This means that the algorithms that make AI with them are also becoming the conceptual and technical foundations for future warfighting. For military forces, AI's principal attraction is its ability to quickly identify patterns and detect items hidden within very large data troves. AI will make it much easier to detect, localise and identify targets across battlespace. Hiding on the future AI-enabled battlefield will be increasingly difficult. However, AI is not perfect. It has well-known problems of being able to be fooled, in being brittle, being unable to transfer knowledge going from one task to another, and being dependent on data. The difficulties with AI are such that for practical purposes, AI must be teamed with humans. The upside to this is that the strengths of AI can counterbalance the weaknesses in human cognition and vice versa. Human strengths offset AI shortcomings. If this path is not followed, it is inherently uncertain what, for example, a solid AI-guided weapon may attack. It could be apartment blocks as Russian missiles and drones do. This is both useless and wasteful from a military viewpoint and against the laws of war. Good tactics, techniques and procedures will be as important with AI-enabled systems as they are when using today's automated systems. AI is a general-purpose technology, becoming all pervasive across society, not reached through the ubiquitous smartphone. In the same way, AI will infuse military machines and enable the battle space. This infusion and enabling is for a specific purpose, and as ex-US Defence Secretary Robert Work said, the reason to pursue AI is to pursue autonomy. There are two basic forms of autonomy: autonomy at rest systems, including intelligence support systems, predictive maintenance tools, image recognition solutions, and command and control support. Autonomy in motion systems include autonomous weapons, platforms, and robots. AI's general purpose nature means machines using AI are likely to be initially employed with the existing operational level thinking. In the short to medium term, AI will enable the battlefield, not remake it. In buzzword terms, AI's warfare utility is in find and fool. AI with its machine learning is excellent at finding items hidden within a high-clutter background. In this role, AI is better than humans and tremendously faster. On the other hand, AI can be filled through various means. AI's great finding capabilities lack robustness. AI's find abilities further provide mobile systems a new level of autonomy. The AI can analyse its surroundings to discern important operating data. This means that both the find and fill tasks can be undertaken using mobile and at-rest AI-enabled systems, featuring varying levels of autonomy. AI can bring to modern warfighting enhanced sensors, improved kinetic and non-kinetic systems, more convincing perception techniques, and a wide array of ways to confuse. However, AI is not a standalone actor, rather it works in combination with numerous other digital technologies. It provides a form of technology, rather a form of cognition to these. Let's now move briefly to discuss defensive operations. In these, a large number of low-cost Internet of Things sensors using edge computing could be placed in the optimum land, sea, airspace and cyber locations across the territory which an attack may come. From these sensors, a deep understanding could be gained of various terrain, sea conditions, physical environment and local virtual setting. Having this background data accelerates AI's detection of changes and in particular the movement of military forces across it. The fixed and mobile Internet of Things sensors are then connected into a robust cloud to reliably feed data back into remote command support systems. The command system's well-trained AI can very rapidly filter out the important information from the background clutter. Using this AI can then forecast adverse reactions and predict optimum own force employment and its combat effectiveness. Hostile forces geolocated by AI can, after approval by human commanders, be quickly engaged using indirect fire, including mobile long-range guns, missiles, or attack drones. Such an approach to engage closer view targets, the key issue being data of the targets and the availability of civil range firepower. The result is that the defended territory quickly becomes a no-go zone. To support the full function, unmanned vehicles could be deployed across battle space with a variety of electronic systems suitable for counterintelligence surveillance, reconnaissance tasks. The intent is to defeat the adversary's AI firing capabilities. Made mobile through AI, these unmanned vehicles will be harder for enemies to destroy than fixed jammers would be. Moreover, mobile unmanned vehicles can be sent close to approaching hostile forces to maximise jamming effectiveness. Such vehicles can also play a key role in deception, creating a false and misleading impression of the battlefield of the adversary. Let's shift to think about offensive operations. An attacker can choose the location and timing of the assault. Accordingly, large numbers of unmanned vehicles can be massed in space and time so as to break through a point with the defender's close battle zone. Given the defender must cover a large front, an attacker can fight attrition battles using semi-expendable, or attributable as they say now, unmanned vehicles should create an opening that forces following on can exploit. This penetration can now be by numerous small, fast maneuvers employing unmanned vehicles and integrated systems with each other and the command control system. Given both AI and humans have complementary strengths and weaknesses, each swarm unit is a human machine team of varying size and capabilities. These units could mass, exchange targeting data, swarm, and then attack using their diverse capabilities. The swarm's overall situational awareness will come from units exchanging data and supplemented by the more comprehensive surveillance provided by the remote AI-enabled command control system located in friendly territory. Importantly, some of the swarms will also keep tasks. Counter ASI remains crucial deep into hostile territory. There are a couple of issues to watch. Firstly, AI systems using neural networks and deep learning have now achieved a level of performance beyond that of humans in tasks involving image classification, speech recognition and gameplay. However, a major issue with AI using deep learning is low explainability. Deep learning works and works well, but no one's too sure why or how. Explainable AI will be essential for starting to understand, trust and use AI-enabled systems effectively. Again, good TTPs will be key. Secondly, there's a shift in thinking away from having a few large, highly autonomous vehicles to having many small, single-role vehicles. This means the near to medium-term future looks like platforms go actually between motherships, controlling nearby unmanned swarms of many types, undertaking many combat and combat-enabled functions. Platforms will move to take on the combat support tasks needed to keep their unmanned vehicle swarms operating. Unmanned vehicles may become the driving force structures and overthrow the central place of platforms. And there's already been said much sooner than we might think. Thank you very much. I look forward to your questions later.
Thank you very much. And before we take the questions in the end, but you always mention about explainability and trust, and I think that is a very, very big factor. Both the Vice Chief and General Khandare, both of them mentioned about, if you cannot have a man in the loop. So before we go on to the teaming part of it, we have with us Mr. Niladri Datta, who, though he's the CEO of Target, he deals with AI, but I think you do have concerns about letting the machines take decisions. So to begin with, would you like to cover that aspect?
Yeah, you came to the right point, Commander Golaya. It's like all about a human-machine trust. And here we are talking about an AI. Honestly speaking, like as I am representing the industrial side of it, 2016 when we started working on the AI, I never thought that there will be a day where I'll be talking AI in the future warfare. Because that's one of the most critical things today on the current affairs which has come in, like Ukraine and the Russian war. We are seeing that how the things are going. AI can make definitely a major difference into that area, but as said, that human-machine trust is a very important thing. There has to be a limit of using of the AI, in certain areas, but then AI can bring an enormous amount of change, exactly how the human can making decisions, how they basically go ahead and start implementing their strategies and the tactics based on multiple different kind of observations which happens, which can be even governing or which can be even influencing. Did that answer it?
Yeah, the last time when we were having a discussion on this, there's a point which you brought up which was very interesting, that when machine learning comes in, different machines learn different ways. It's like a child who's learning, so depending on how they've been trained. So the same thing, it's a black box, which can't explain how it's doing it, but the way the thing has been done, it might actually behave differently. So, do you have any views on that, or?
Yeah, of course. It's the way the machines are trained. It is something like, definitely in the AI, the first thing what we need is a great amount of patience. Because, as a human, I take 25 years to get that credibility to come and basically join the industry. We cannot expect an AI, a machine, to do a wonder in 1 year. So it needs a great amount of patience. It needs a kind of adaptability. And the most important thing over here, Commodore Golaya, is the knowledge. The computer needs to be fed with that kind of a knowledge, needs to be connected to every node. Like, take an example. Today, like, we completed one of the first trials, that is like at the simulation level, which we started with Indian Navy way back in 2018. That's understanding the ship's structural health. Now, understanding the ship's structural health with AI is not that a very simple thing, because the ship is an enormous structure. The people, those who are not connected with the domain, as you said correctly, that human-machine trust and the machine training can only happen correctly if there is a perfect domain understanding and a connection is there. So you look at the ship, it's an enormous structure. It's going through the humongous amount of stress. And because of it, because of its current or past operational and loading conditions, an AI needs to understand everything. Trust me, if you come from the shipping domain, like the naval, the entire marine industry and the naval industry, you look into it, is like a designer of a ship do not know the S curve of a ship the moment the ship is floated in the water. And that's one of the areas which is actually creating the major stress and the possibilities. Understanding how the hydrodynamics are behaving, understanding how the stresses are getting distributed between his entire structure, the member elements, the stiffeners, and the AI comes in over there with so much of understanding. So the knowledge is very important.
Yes, and you actually said the thing correctly for the next. I would request Mr. Aditya Nawab, who is the CEO and founder of Robusys, because we've been talking about AI, but there's some, I think it was mentioned again in the keynote address that unlike the maritime domain, it's the aviation, the drones which have picked up much more. So can I request you to give your views, because you are primarily unmanned maritime company. So could you give your views about the peculiarities of the maritime domain and why it has possibly not picked up as much as it has in other things, though it's changing. But there's certain peculiarities. So can I request you to cover that?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? So I think it is fascinating to learn about how explainability, AI, and the challenges actually come into the picture. Now, our journey has not only been in the maritime domain, but as you mentioned, I think it is important to learn why the maritime industry so far has not produced that amount of momentum that the UAVs have created. Now, one thing that is common along that thread is the UAVs are not limited by the challenges of communication over the horizon. Number one, they have the UAVs can be controlled, they have the range to be controlled, and that dimension is very critical, especially in the maritime domain. Because if you look at the operations to be done over the horizon, right now the unmanned systems or unmanned surface vessels in the maritime domain are limited by its range. Now those things are changing. The second thing is we mentioned about the exploratory behaviors. Now, there are two kinds. One is the command and control centric, where you have the ability of your unmanned system to be controlled from a remote station. The second one is exploratory. Now you talk about space robots, right? They do not have any kind of a GPS location. They have missions, and they are more on the exploratory sense. Now you bring that in the maritime domain, because the other challenge over here is that your sensors that are used for the ground vehicles are not as useful in the maritime domain. Your LiDARs are not going to be that effective when you talk about the maritime domains. And the rules, humans are very much good at making judgments, whereas machines love to follow rules. The rules are not consistent. For example, AI. We cannot train our systems based on the data which is 20 years old, for example. Because rules have changed, we do not know what is the context of what that AI black box is making a decision. And hence, when we talk about engaging with AI modules in the maritime domain, we need to think about what kind of challenges persist in terms of the regulations. For example, collision regulations. On the road, for example, in the ground vehicle systems, there is a specific, you can see the lanes, you can see and visualize, and the sensors do work. In maritime domain, that's a completely different story as well. So those kind of challenges are persistent in the maritime domain. And secondly, the accessibility to remotely fix problems. We cannot just send, these vessels are hundreds and thousands of nautical miles away, and they need, if there is some problem, you need a man in the loop to actually go and visualize and see the problem and fix the problem. So that is where, I guess, the man-unmanned teaming comes and becomes even more important, and the decision-making process becomes a critical aspect of this. So those are the challenges that we see from the maritime domain, specifically in using unmanned surface vessels. So, yeah.
And the paradox which of course everybody is aware of, and it's always said that what is very easy for a human is very difficult for a machine, and vice versa. We probably cannot solve complex problems in split seconds like computers can. On the other hand, a 2-year-old child will possibly be able to walk down the stage without falling. A machine would find it very difficult to do that. So what's easy for us is difficult for the machines, and the other way around. This just is aside, but before we move on to, so we've discussed the problems, we've discussed various viewpoints. So now I'll move on to Group Captain Thakur, who again I think needs no introduction, the Chief Test Pilot at HAL. He's the one who has been working on actually making the system. So we're moving now from the theory to the actual systems which are being made at HAL for the Loyal Wingmen, the CATs. So could you tell us a bit about what systems are there and how you're going about it?
So I'll first of all let me clarify where I come from. I don't trust AI. Like many Faujis, I don't trust AI. I love machines, but I don't love the decisions that they take. So we're in combat, and the machine does something entirely different from what has been briefed to it. But it does invariably get to the aim of shooting down the guy who I wanted to shoot down. So yes, if I were an artist, that is a great combination. That I don't care what it does as long as it brings me the result, and it's a beautiful result invariably. So to that extent, I accept that it is credible. It has to prove itself in combat. If you would like me to give the long answer, I can get on the stage. I can take about 5 minutes and cover what we are doing in this domain and how AI fits in, if it proves itself to me, it fits in. Otherwise,
so you ask if I permit you to go there and give a long answer.
Oh, yes.
Knowing a fighter pilot, whether you say yes or no, he'll do what he wants. All yours.
Thank you. So I'll take you a little up and away from what we've been discussing to put real combat into your head. So I'll discuss more about air power, air combat, dogfighting. Maybe back in the day I've been in a few dogfights, but I'm a little stressed and anxious today because the moderator has shared the YouTube link for this to my wife and to my classmates who are sitting having chips and beer and watching us. So imagine you're doing a dogfight and you're being watched. And with 9 Gs you turn towards the right and your wife says, no, not that direction, you have to go there. So there you are. Manned combat is not manned anymore, it's more than that. Let's loosen the collars a little. I'll show you a short video of the beginning of a war game and I'll tell you what we are really doing to get there, where everybody is talking about technologies, where they all coalesce and become a product. Let's take a short peep into that and for the video, please.
So now you know why he doesn't trust machines.
There you are. So this is the beginning of what was intended to be shown through a video. Is the beginning of a war game where so what's up? I'm sorry, let's continue with that. Right in front of you. I don't need to conclude for you. You need to decide whether you trust fighter pilots or you trust it.
Why do you have a feeling that that was intentional? I somehow get this feeling that it was intended that way. No, Murphy can always try. So why did you just describe what you were planning to do?
All right. So what you saw in a very short 5-second clip is an unmanned combat aerial vehicle, which is obviously meant to eventually make us jobless, but will basically replace manned crewed fighters, and it will be fighting the wars for the pilots, who will be sitting on the ground and controlling them. Okay, so they will be fighting the wars. It's not easy to replace a fighter pilot who's like a Formula 1 driver. If you just can't get on the racetrack and start winning races. So I think many people who are in the air and fighting with each other are like that. They're very, very, very skillful, and it'll take a while for machines to get there. But under supervision, they can perform some miracles. So this is where we are. We are at the cusp of a transition where we haven't yet reached to unmanned combat. That means lots of drones fighting against another set of lots of drones against a country who we don't like very much. And we are not just there, and no one is. So we will take a long while to reach there. In the interim, there is the set of highly skilled operators, and there are these machines who will have adequate intelligence to walk a bit, to fly a bit, and to shoot when they are told to. That's it. So how is a conventional war game, or the war game of yesterday, how was it played? The most basic situation is that two fighter aircraft from the are intruding into your enemy territory. You know they are intruding, So you sprint to your aircraft, you fly down to that site which is 150 miles from your base. You take them on, you pluck the strike. As they turn away or they dispense their bombs or whatever else they were carrying, you have disrupted their move into your territory towards the intended objective. This is the way combat has been fought. Air combat has been fought. 2 aircraft versus 2 aircraft is a very basic situation. Now, while you do this combat, you may have stopped them, you may even shoot down one of their aircraft. You may suffer a loss. You may have one aircraft going down. A very wise Air Force, like in the Indian context, would decide and take a call very quickly that this generation of aircraft are not adequately superior to hold them off without losses. Therefore, they move to a 4.5 generation fighter or something like that. And they'll quickly bring in some 4.5 generation. Within no time, the adversary will also do that. We'll have 4.5 generation aircraft. So we'd say, no, now we need to move to the 5th generation and the adversary eventually will catch up. This is a very expensive arms race. Number one, people can't afford it, but fighter pilots don't care if it's not affordable. The problem is that the transition period from a generation or half a generation to another is quite long.
The future of warfare is all about compressing timelines.
Yes, that too. So the problem is, I'm going to take only 1 minute, that we need to be on the right side of the curve, which we are not presently. What we need to do is knock off half the force. You take 1 fighter and you take 3 or 4 unmanned fighters, uncrewed fighters, along with this fighter. You distribute your sensors, distribute your weapons, and distribute your intelligence in such a way that you can overpower 2 of their manned fighters very, very quickly and effectively. That is all about manned-unmanned teaming of today. It does not require too much of AI, or maybe it does, I don't care. As long as I can supervise it and make sure that they do the task that I need them to do, it will happen over the next 10 to 15 years, and thereafter we move to completely unmanned combat. That's the long and short of it. Thank you for giving me the time and sorry, short. Thank you.
Thank you. And as I said, I think we started late and we are slightly behind time. So we will take on a few questions. But before we take on the questions from the audience, how many of you watched the Alpha Dogfight live? Who all were, I think Indian Standard Time, it happened at 2 o'clock at night, so who all were watching it? The human versus the AI, the 4 dogfights, and I think it was 4-0, the human lost. But the most interesting thing was that the pilot who was, actually the US Air Force which did it, and the last time the pilot says that I've been watching how the machine is working and I've learned a lot from that. So I found that very interesting that this is the machine learning how the humans think. The human says that I've been watching this machine and I've learned a lot from that. So that was something which I found very interesting. But we'll take on very quickly just 1 or 2 questions maybe, and as I said, we are slightly behind time. Are there any questions from the audience? You could please indicate whom your question is addressed to if you are asking a specific panelist. The gentleman over there, sir. Please introduce yourself and then go ahead and ask the question.
Thank you. I was looking for a mic. My name is Mahadevan Shankar. Managed to fly all the way from Australia. So I'm the national convener in the Australia-India Chamber of Commerce. We are driving a lot of defense initiatives. What I was hearing from you all and also the wonderful professor who's somewhere online, I'm trying to understand what's the scope ahead for the Australia-India collaboration, especially in the maritime domain. Because another hat I wear is as an adjunct fellow of the National Maritime Foundation. And we're trying to work on developing technology collaborations between India and Australia. And the USV's concept that you said in artificial intelligence, especially trying to develop the A2AD concepts and capabilities. Would you like to, either of you is open, would any of you want to throw some ideas as to where and how far it can go? And also the potential for space collaboration, because obviously Australia is now beginning to warm up and look with work with India tremendously in the space part of things. Thank you.
So I think that's a very, very specific question about a particular this thing. So we can, of course, discuss it offline. The only person on stage who can possibly answer it, I think, would be SR, but we would leave that question for a bilateral discussion to talk about what all we can do together. That's a separate thing. Any question about the specific? Yes, sir.
So basically, I think Aditya had pointed out certain, some reasons that the technology is not really, or the naval on the naval side, vis-a-vis the drones, why the innovations are not so rampant. So my question is, like you talked about the lidar not working in the sea, or whether the geolocation part and other things. So why aren't these problems being posed to startups, and why aren't the startups with which are newer in nature being given opportunities in this sector to be able to solve these problems that are there? So because the IDEX is there, it is there, but I think there is a mindset take companies which are already well established and which have a precedence of 1-2 years to be taken into this. So what are the things?
So your question was to Mr. Aditya Nawab, but I would before I hand over to him.
No.
So let me just give you some statistics.
There is a background I'm taking.
Yes. So let me just give you some statistics. Offhand, you mentioned that why are we not looking at startups? You are aware of the sprint challenges which were there. Launched on 18th of July, as was mentioned by the Honorable Prime Minister. Let me give you statistics. Responses received including Moto 1106. Firms identified as winners already 118. Out of them, 100 firms who have not worked with the defense before. So we have more than 100 startups, and quite a few, in fact, of them are here. Yes, and I can see everybody raising their hands. So there are startups who are doing an amazing amount of work, including in the field which you have mentioned. I'll hand over to Mr. Nawab, but I think you also were one of the winners of, isn't it, of the Sprint Challenge? Yes. So a number of firms are there, the problems are known, we are working at it.
So my problem is a little more specific, not to Mr. Aditya. I think he's doing a brilliant job. So my thing is more on the side that, there are startups that are definitely there. But sir, even our company has been bidding for, the Sprint Challenge, for example. And this, we don't have an idea whether we are in or out, or what is the reason, or how we should course correct our approach to be able to get in there. But we know we have technological greatness to be able to solve the problems that are there. But I don't think we get the opportunity to be there, sir. So how do we solve this problem? What I'm trying to address.
Point taken, point appreciated. You said that you were also there, but you do not know the current state. These were the first 75. There'll be 75 more, there'll be 75 more, and not only from the Navy, I'm sure they'll be there from the Army, Air Force. There is enough space for the startups. The ecosystem is blooming. There would be more than enough chances, but only for the positive time, and we continue discussing this. I think let me take one more question, sir. So one last question, and after that I will request Admiral McCarthy to make the concluding remarks. One last question. Yes, I can see Group Captain Arun?
Yeah,
yes.
Thank you. Now I'll ask the designer and manufacturer's perspective. What do you need to make your project successful in terms of users and other players? Are you happy, or you need to do? What is your desirable involvement?
So the machines need to act as fast as fighter pilots. That's number one. So they're lacking, but that's not the bottleneck. I think the bottleneck is the mechanical pace of things in our industry. We are in the conventional industry. We follow conventional methodologies to make an aircraft, because I am in the aircraft field. To make an aircraft from conceiving to flying the first prototype takes 6 years. To induct it takes 10 years. That's a total of 10 years. That's a very long time. By then the technology changes on the outside. And AI, machine learning, etc. is happening very, very fast. By then my machines will be quite old. So that will get altered if our certification processes, a little bit of what people call red tapeism is reduced. That is a big bottleneck, for sure.
With that, I do wish we had more time and we could have gone on and on, but with that, can I request Admiral Nakati, sir, if you could sum up and maybe give the concluding remarks.
So, as far as summing up is concerned, I don't think this topic can be summed up. The question-answer session and the discussion itself was an indication that this is the beginning and this is going to go on for a very long time. So, I don't think I'll make any attempt to sum it up, but I would say a few thoughts on what the discussion has come as a concluding remark. And if we see today's discussion itself, and this is a very small slice of the overall aspect of unmanned, manned teaming, etc., is there is from the beginning, from what Vice Chief spoke to General Khandare, all the speakers spoke, Peter Layton also spoke about it, and question-answer session. One thing is very clear: we are talking about mix of manned, unmanned force mix. So this is what essentially it is means that we are talking about the mix between machine and the humans. And there are so many dimensions of this mix that we need to understand. Firstly, this aspect that there are so many dimensions. And some of the dimensions which are very obvious, which come up, because which General Khandare also spoke in his initial remarks, is that, we need to have, there are stakeholders, there is user, there is a person who's the scientist who gets, there is industry, and there are other stakeholders as well. What is the mix between there, and how do we go forward from where we have started, understanding each other's perspective? So this mix between human and machine and the understanding of each other is on many dimensions, and this needs to be progressed. And so that is what the essence, I would say, is what we can conclude from this talk. And I would just like to add on to that the one dimension that the armed forces are wanting to do, as specifically I will talk about Navy, and I'm sorry that we have not been able to address the specific questions that the industry is asking for, and this is a very pertinent question, and we can talk about this off the line, and we'll try and answer your questions. But this is what something is the issue which needs to be addressed. We need to take stakeholders' consideration, their concern. Then only we can move forward. And Navy has made some effort in this direction. Vice Chief mentioned in his opening remarks that we have firstly made an unmanned roadmap. This is available online. Prime Minister had launched it on 18th of July. It's available. You can apply for it. General Khandare also mentioned about the fact that how does the industry go about it if you don't know what do you want, how much numbers you want, what is the kind of capability you want. So that's one part of it. We have made a beginning, and we are ready to extend this aspects further. You can get the unmanned roadmap, and you can get into discussion with us. Now, the next part of it is that, as I mentioned, that there are so many dimensions of this force, man and man mix for the force for the future, that it doesn't stop here, because eventually, and as Captain Thakur also mentioned, that the machine is very good at doing the last eventual aim, that if you ask him to destroy the target, it will destroy it. And it will probably not listen to the instructions properly, the way we are supposed to be doing it. And both are important, and especially for armed forces, it is very important to destroy the target the way we want to, because we may not want to destroy the target immediately. There is a process that we want it to go through. So this aspect needs to be understood, and it will not be understood because the machine is to be made by the people who are making the machine. It is a production version is to be made by industry, and the requirement is ours. So this dialogue, this aspect of understanding each other has to go further. And I'm happy standing in Gujarat, Ahmedabad, that as far as Navy is concerned, our nucleus for this process is in Porbandar. We are the aspect, there is an unmanned squadron that we are creating, and we want to make it open so that we can have the understanding of the industry, what our operational concepts are,
what the technology is getting, try it out, take the best route forward. Challenges are many. Neil also spoke about, and Mr. Nawab also spoke about. Positioning is a problem, communication is a problem. While Group Captain Thakur said that he is very happy as long as they listen to his instructions. But what happens in a temperamental communication when the machine stops listening to your communication because it cannot reach the communication? So autonomy is required. So these are aspects that we need to understand, and not taking many more time, I would like to say that we are on the path of progress, and I do understand that there are many questions that we need to answer. But we have started, so we will reach somewhere. Thank you very much.
May I now call upon Mr. Sunil Mishra, Director General SITM, for the vote of thanks.
Very good afternoon. For me, this has been a very thought-provoking discussion which the distinguished panel had. I learned a few things. I had never thought about certain things from the perspective of the fighter pilot. We at SITM have been working very closely with the Indian Navy, with NIIO, and with very satisfactory outcomes and results. And as it was mentioned that this is an area where things are evolving, and definitely new opportunities for Indian business will come out. So from the industry perspective, we are very keen to partner further with the Indian Navy and NIIO on this subject, and our best of the attention would be there to take this forward. I thank Vice Admiral Kormale, Lieutenant General Adare, and the very distinguished panel for your time here today with the industry and with other stakeholders, and would not stand in between this very thought-provoking discussion and now the lunch. And thank you very much for giving this opportunity with the Indian Navy. Thank you.
May I now request the Vice Chief of the Naval Staff to hand over the Naval Crest to the speakers as a token of appreciation. Lieutenant General E.G. Khandare.
Yes, sir.
Group Captain H.D. Thakur.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Aditya Nawab. And Mr. Nilati Datta. you, sir. May I now request all the speakers for a group photograph?
Dr. Peter Layton, your press would have to be sent by snail mail. There's certain things which science will have. Thank you for joining us online.
So close. Yes. Thank you, sir.
With this, we come to the end of the seminar. I once again thank all of you for participating. Shankar Varna.